This is a Central Line train to West London.
Ladies and gentlemen,
exponential technology is changing the way we live, work, and play. But the human mind does not deal with exponential thinking very well. We are seemingly on the first step of a staircase that promises to carry us into an unknown future that many of us are simply not prepared for. So to understand the current state of the world's most powerful exponential technology, I have traveled to London Tech Week to meet up with some of the world's leading technologists and thought leaders to help you understand the implications of these technologies on your world. My name is Matt Brown, and this is the State of X.
This is the biggest and most ambitious festival of technology this country has ever seen.
So the definition of being innovative is having an original or new idea, but simply having an idea does not make you innovative, and it certainly doesn't give you the seal of brilliance just because no one else has thought of it. So what does it mean to be innovative today? What is the state of innovation within the private and public sector? And what endless possibilities await us as we venture further into the development of the exponential technology around us today? In this episode of State of X, I speak to Johnny Voon, the innovation lead for the Internet of Things and distributed ledger technology within Innovate UK's digital economy team. Essentially, they are the innovation partner to the UK government. And I wanted to find out from Johnny how the UK government is working with innovative startups from Africa and around the world to solve the most pressing problems of the private and public sector today. Hey guys, welcome back to State of X. With me today in this episode, I've got the man, the legend, that is Johnny Voon. Johnny, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So Johnny, you're from Innovate UK, obviously.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about what is Innovate UK and what are you guys up to?
So Innovate UK is a government's innovation agency, right? So we provide funding, not grant funding, to do R&D for like tech startups, for large corporates, and anything to do with technology, generally around sort of what we call grand challenges. These grand challenges are things like the future of our aging, future of mobility, manufacturing, but they also revolve around technology. So anything like quantum, artificial intelligence, blockchain, 5G, regenerative medicine, new types of energy, and a lot of our mission is trying to help companies undertake risky R&D. So this is typically R&D where, it's a little bit risky. There may be a high chance of failure, or there's a lack of investment, or maybe there's no market. What we try and do is we try and stimulate that. So we give them grants. That's not an investment. We don't take equity. We don't try and take a share of their company. We don't take control. It's like giving them money, like taxpayer money, for them to do R&D that they may not do anyway.
Amazing. So I want to do research into aging and or something in that space. How would I engage with you? And is it only reserved for UK-based companies, or is it more broad in terms of your mandate?
Yeah, so our main mandate is UK-based companies. Doesn't mean you have to just be a UK startup, but you can also move across some other nations, other countries. We have had that in the past as well too. So if you want to get involved in, say, aging and want to be involved, first thing is to try to find what sort of funding stream works for you. Like any funding organization, there's not just one sort of pot or one type of investment or type of grant. There's lots of different types of things. You may be a startup that just wants a small amount to try and do maybe a feasibility study, try and test the market. Or you may be, actually, we've got a prototype and we want to work with the NHS or another health partner to try and put together something really big and really game-changing. It's quite risky, it might take 2 or 3 years. So once you realize that, you come to us and say, look, actually, we've got this idea, and you may fit into something that is very specific for aging. We do have a healthy aging program, or you may come into one of our more open or more generic sort of funding streams, which is open to anyone with a great idea. So we kind of want to make it easy for anyone to come and see us, and help make the world a better place, really.
Yeah, I love that idea. Tell me something, how big are the grants typically? I mean, are we looking at £50,000, £500,000?
Anything from, I've seen ones from about 25K. I personally have funded the project up to 10 million. We have ones that are even bigger than that. So a consortiums range from individual startups all the way through to 20, 30 partners, all trying to work together, which has its own challenge, right?
Yeah,
if you're a startup, you're working with a large corporate, an academic, and other types of public sector, it's challenging. Now you want to get moving fast, but everyone's going, well, hang on a second, play it slow. So it has its own challenges when you do that.
Cool, I love it. You were on a panel earlier, right?
Yeah.
Doing some talks and stuff like that. What were you talking about and why?
So that was blockchain and the business benefits of blockchain. So the pros and cons, or blockchain is this massively hyped up thing. What is the actual cost to blockchain, and what are the actual benefits? So people talk about, the benefits are decentralized, the ability for consensus mechanisms and so forth. But what are the actual benefits to a business? So we had banks in there that said, look, the role of blockchain, it's another technology, transformational technology like AI, like data, like other types of tech. But it really helps us do the fundamental things of getting rid of paper process, getting rid of manual process, getting rid of mistakes that humans can make, right? So if you go to a bank and you want to transfer money to something else and it's a large amount, you might have gone get a check or got some sort of paper order and someone else has to sign it off, and you take that around the houses, get that signed off. And that's slow, it's cumbersome, it's difficult, and there are errors. Someone gets a zero wrong, you're a millionaire or you're bankrupt, right? So, yeah, exactly, it really depends. So using technology just gets rid of all that. It speeds things up, makes it easier. But then we have the benefits of startups, and startups look at blockchain as a new business model. So we have Bitcar, who looks at fractional ownership of exotic vehicles. Now, without technology like blockchain, trying to maintain that requires someone sending in bits of paper. How do you know that I actually own that? A certificate of ownership? That's just not possible. And if you were an exotic car owner, would you trust someone that rocked up to your house and go, hey, I own 10% of your car, here's a piece of paper? You'd say, I don't think so. So blockchain really allows businesses like that to go, hey, there's new markets for us that allows us to try new things. And it's all software, it's very easy, and we've got the proof, right? Mathematical proof. And that's the really cool thing about technology like blockchain, is that it can help underpin so many different industries, but you don't really need to know it's blockchain. You just need to know it works.
Yeah,
right?
Or that it's tokenized.
Or it's tokenized, right? Yeah.
So we were talking before we went on air about, just explain the Ferrari story, tokenizing hypercars and supercar ownership.
That's right.
Give us an example. What does that actually mean in the real world?
So in the real world, I mean, think about you investing in shares. You invest in shares in a company, right? What is the proof that you have? What is your physical asset? You might get a share certificate. That is as close as you get to getting physical proof. So if you look at artwork, look at gold, look at tangible assets, people want to own tangible assets, right? People want to own artwork, want to own gold, but they don't want to own the whole thing. Plus, if you own art, you've got to store it, you've got to insure it, you've got to put up somewhere. Same with gold, it's expensive to store. So if you could invest in an asset that you knew was real, that someone had validated, there is your asset, but you didn't want the hassle of maintaining it and storing it, well, actually, taking sort of shared ownership and tokenizing things like sports cars and other types of assets, diamonds example, that was a good example, is really powerful, because it means that you can own something without having to worry about, where do I store it? Do I have a safe? Do I have a garage that can do this? What about insurance? What if someone steals it? All those headaches can disappear.
Or what you're also saying then is that, if you take a Ferrari 458 Spider, that car is going to get more expensive.
Exactly.
Right? So it's going to appreciate, but to get into that investment opportunity, you're going to buy a token on the blockchain.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can take advantage of that appreciation.
Absolutely. And if you stretch that out further to the future, think about owning property. Right now in London, buying property is so expensive, right? If you're a young, 20-something-year-old trying to buy your first property, good luck with that, right? So how about tokenizing property, right? So I can't own the entire property, but you want a bit of extra cash to do some renovations, so you tokenize your house and you sell a fractional ownership, and I buy a bit of fractional ownership all over the place. That means eventually, if one property goes up, I sell that, I get a deposit, and I buy my own house, or maybe I buy it and sell part of it as fractional ownership, right? So it changes the way that we begin to view assets. Instead of being one single thing, one person owns one asset, we can now digitize that and say, actually, I can prove that you have part ownership and you want to exercise that right to sell it by your means you can. I want to take the money or whatever else comes through.
What do you say to the protagonists that say blockchain is only good for financial stuff? Like you can't put, or store, let's just say, rare plants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all the Amazon plants and putting that on the blockchain so it's immutable for the rest of time.
Yeah.
And you can track ownership and the movements of these rare plants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Across the world. What do you say to that?
So I've seen from my own evidence, and this is the projects we funded. So we funded just over about 45 projects in the UK, just over £9 million in blockchain, and it shifted from being the core technology, like developing smart contracts on Ethereum, to those that are looking at new types of use cases, those in the charitable giving, those in the health space, public sector, construction, transport, energy. Right? That's not finance. In fact, we're seeing so little finance because there's money in finance, and they can spend that anyway.
A lot of money in finance.
Hey, yeah. So they're taking care of that already. So a lot of these other aspects, people are going, actually, supply chain wouldn't it be good if I could track when there's a defective good, where it came from, and I can issue a recall without having to issue a blanket recall for everything. So think about food, right? So in the UK we had mad cow disease. They didn't know which farm it came from, so they just started killing cows, sort of not quite indiscriminately, but just to make sure that it got out of the way. So imagine if you could trace down from that contaminated piece of pack of meat all the way through to the farm, you could save that industry instantly, like save it straight away. So yes,
it is possible.
It is absolutely possible, right? And now the problem is, everyone's got their own little systems, right? Everyone has, a system for shopping. Everyone has a system for different supply chains. So the only way to do that right now is to do it by email, by paper, by fax, and that's just too slow, right? It's just
What's that? Did you just say FAX?
Yeah, exactly. I know. People still do that. Right?
I know.
It's
We have
crazy.
your fax. Give me your fax number.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Jason, I wanted to ask you just more broadly about Africa.
Sure.
This obviously is, we're trying to paint a picture about African technology. What did you see in your objective view, sitting in the UK, looking, of course, not only in the UK, but looking more broadly around, the world and emerging markets? What do you say to people that say that the international community doesn't take African technology serious enough?
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
So I say that they haven't looked at history, right? Because a lot of key technology, things like M-Pesa and others, have come from Africa. And as a market, it is unbelievably diverse, right? And so people talk about Europe market being quite diverse. It's really not, because we all are so harmonized in terms of regulation and everything else that once it sort of works in one, it sort of works in the other nations. The great thing with Africa is that you have to innovate. Right, you have to think on your feet. You can't say, oh, it's going to work in South Africa, therefore it'll work in Morocco, therefore it'll work in Kenya, therefore it'll work. It doesn't, right? It has to work quite uniquely. And a lot of people see Africa as too difficult because there are so many innovators. And in fact, a lot of UK businesses are scared of going to Africa.
Why though?
Because they can't move as fast, right? It's actually a benefit to actually think that fast. We're so used to going, well, our development cycle is this long, and we've got a set market, and we've got incumbents, and this is how the way things are done.
Yeah, everything's known.
Everything's known, everything's sorted, and if not, there's always the European Commission to set the standards, right? So we have a set time frame when it comes to standards. So Africa, you've got to move a lot faster, and that's a perception by Europe and parts of the UK community that there is a strong market there. There is a population large numbers of population that are just crying out for innovation. And I funded some businesses, a lot of businesses actually, that have gone out to Africa as their key market, things around renewable energy, because sort of smart grids and sort of localized grids have so much more potential there than the established infrastructure that we have here. But it takes a lot of effort for British businesses to try and understand the market, because if you understand South Africa, it doesn't mean you understand Ethiopia, or it doesn't mean you understand Somalia or other places like that, right? It's so different.
Yeah. Tell me something, Jason, objectively and all cards on the table. What is your words of wisdom to African tech startups when it comes to engaging with the international community around the value that they're creating? And of course, as you just said, the international market being, quote unquote scared or, a little bit reluctant to deal with the unknowns of Africa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is the best way to engage with the international community as an African tech startup?
So the best way to engage is to create the key thing is messaging, right? Messaging that there is opportunity in Africa, that it is easy to work with people in Africa, and that you're not just African focused. So a lot of people say, well, but you're an African company, surely you just want to focus on Africa, and it doesn't work anywhere else, right? So try and show that you've got links to others, that you've told to others, that you understand each other nation's problems. So the problems we face in the UK are going to be different from what you face in Africa. Doesn't mean that technology doesn't work, right? Get away from talking about technology and talk about the problems that we share, that we face. And I think if those companies can get that messaging right, then everything else will start to fall into play.
Yeah, I love what you said there about understanding what programs and initiatives are in place, for specific markets that you're interested in. We were at Lancaster House yesterday for this international reception thing. which was just for me personally as an entrepreneur coming from Africa, being in tech, etc., is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Like legitimately mind-blowing when you actually understand how easy it is to scale.
Yeah.
You know, into any number of markets by simply understanding, like the Department of International Trade has this thing, right, and London Partners and Innovate UK, and understanding what you guys are all doing together to help move that ecosystem forward. You know, but that you don't know what you don't know.
Well, of course, and there's still a lot of UK businesses that still don't know that as well too. So, you know, they're coming to us going, we've never heard of Innovate UK before, really, because we funded thousands of companies, right? So it's incredible that even within ecosystems, there's still a lot of unknown, which is incredible. So part of our mission is to spread that. We do actually do a lot of international work as well too. We go out to try and find key partners, key partner countries that are similar to us. And one of the great things with Africa, especially things like South Africa, is that we both speak English, right? So driving on the same side of the road, hey, you know, but small things like that make a big difference. If you're a business thinking, do I want to go to that country where the language barrier and culture barrier is too difficult, or do I go over here? That's a big key thing for them, right? That's a big part of the decision.
It's a great point. Jason, last question for you. Why do you do what you do? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
I love what I do because it makes a difference, right? So I can see actual change taking place. So I funded some smart cities projects, and one of them finished in Manchester. And although people will never know that I played a part in helping shape their city, I know that there's 150,000, maybe 200,000 people in this area that are going to have their lives affected, going to be improved, it's going to make a difference. And that's incredible to see the change that you can affect now. One small drop that you take now in this ocean of tech is going to have huge ripples later on to people's lives. And yes, people won't really think about that. Think about Tim Berners-Lee, who created the internet, the World Wide Web back then, right? Yeah. When he created it, the change in people's lives it has now is incredible. So, you know, that sort of feeling and that understanding is incredible, and that's what I live for.
Johnny Voon, thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome. Take care.
Cool, man.
Thanks.
We are all in a situation now where we're looking at the future of the workplace, where over, I think in 10 years' time, 90% of jobs are all going to require digital skills. And what are we all doing to address that? You know, we need to be talking to the younger generation, we need to be talking to academia, and we as an industry need to be owning this.